Hello everyone, welcome to another interesting session. Today I will be looking at the employer's liability to his employee, and this is part 2. The last time we came, we looked at the employer's duty to provide a safe premises for work and also to provide safe equipment for work. Today, we'll be looking at the employer's duty to provide a safe system of work and to provide competent staff for work. Now, let us look at the first classification that the law lays down that liability may arise under. Liability may arise where an employer fails to provide safe system of work. The case of Thomas Swift and Company Limited looks closely at what it means to provide a safe system of work. The facts succinctly are that the employee was basically employed to load goods on a ship, and there were several deficiencies in the procedure for loading onto the ship, which the court basically said that the ship was not suitable for the routine of loading on goods to that particular ship. The employee was basically injured as a result of the several deficiencies that were identified. Now, the court said that in assessing whether liability would arise on the part of the employer, then they had to look at 4 factors. They had to look at the layout of the job, which is the physical layout of the job, and they also would have to look at the sequence of the work that this employee was called upon to carry out. They also had to look at whether the necessary warning and notices were in place, and where special circumstances arise, what the employer should observe in basically discharging this duty. The court said that they also had to look at whether there were monitoring and basically improvement to the system in place to respond to particular circumstances or situations that arise. In this particular case, the court said that the employer had failed to ensure that the system of work that was in place was safe. He did not take the reasonable steps to ensure that the employee was not liable when he was carrying out his duty. Therefore, he was liable. The court also says that under this classification, there are also other heads or subheads that an employee may also take or bring a claim against an employer. 1, if it is that an employer fails to protect an employee against psychiatric injury, where that employee would have been exposed to psychiatric injury as a result of his or her heavy workload, then liability can arise on the part of the employer, where that particular employee returns to work and is given the same heavy workload. The law says that the employer has to ensure that he reduces the work because he knows that that particular employee is susceptible to stress. And this was the principle laid down in the case of Walker and Northumberland County Council. In another case, the court said that if an employer fails to warn an employee against known risk, then that particular employer may also become liable where that employee is injured on the job. In the case of Pappy versus Cumbria County Limited, the court said that the employer had a duty to inform the cleaners that they had to use their gloves while they were handling certain chemicals. As a result of the employer's failure to warn these employees of that duty to wear their gloves, it resulted in them basically getting dermatitis. And the court said, you are liable. You did not inform them of what they needed to do when they were handling the chemicals in carrying out their duty. Now, thirdly, the court also lays down that an employer may also become liable where he fails to inform or to lay out the measures that are supposed to be observed by an employee when he carries out his duty. In the case of Books and Metal Company Limited, the court said that these employees were liable on the basis that they had failed to inform the employee that he was supposed to wear his safety goggles when he was carrying out his duty. As a result of this failure, the employees' eyes were injured by the molten metal, and the court said, you as an employee, you are liable for the injuries that the employee would have sustained by virtue of your failure to inform that person of the measures that they are supposed to be observed when they're carrying out their respective work. Let us move on to the final head that the law says that you as an employee may also bring a claim against an employer. Now, where an employer fails to provide competent staff members for work, persons who are fully trained, persons who are fully equipped, persons who would have been basically holding out themselves as in particular profession, they would have had to undergone the requisite training to basically hold themselves out that in that particular profession. They have a standard to be met. Now, if it is that your employer fails to have persons who are fully trained, who are competent to carry out the work, then what will happen if another employee is injured is that liability may arise on that particular employer's part. In addition to this, an employer may also be vicariously liable for the acts of his employee. Now, vicarious liability means that that person or that employee would have had to be carrying out or would have to be carrying out his duty, right, or doing acts in the course of his employment which leads to the injury of another person. If it is found that that person was in the course of their employment and was not on a frolic of their own, then that employer may be liable for any injuries that the act of that employee would have caused. So there you have it. You are aware that as an employee, the law offers protection against injuries that you may sustain while you're at work, while you're in the care of an independent contractor. You may also know that if you do acts which injure another person while you are in the course of your employment, your employer may also become liable. Please do not forget to like and subscribe. Goodbye.